workshop and studio. Whether you're a beginner, an experienced miniature hobbyist, a model railroader, a mini wargamer, or just someone looking for a unique item to display on their mantle or bookcase, you certainly have come to the right place. My purpose with these videos is to help you create historically accurate miniatures. I craft all my models in 0 or 1/4 inch scale, but my methods can easily be adapted to other scales. No fancy power tools are needed. In fact, if you can handle common hand tools, you won't have any problem. Here at U.S. Frontier Miniatures, I strive to not only make a historically accurate model, but one that is as close to museum quality as possible. Now with the techniques that I have learned over the years, along with the methods that I have developed, I'd like to show you how to achieve these same results. Let's get started.
Well, hello, Matt here at Frontier Miniatures, U.S. Frontier Miniatures, and welcome to this whole series. This is part 5 of the series. It is necessarily a long series because it's a complete build of a Delaware River Valley stone house that is a miniature representation of the historic stone houses of early America. The previous parts covered everything from logging or laying out the plans for a circa 1750 stone house, through building the basic structure and designing and painting the basic parts, and also creating and painting the simulated stonework. So if you haven't seen them, I'd certainly recommend that you check them out. Right here, we're in the process of gluing the chimney on this side of the house, which we need to do before we go ahead and roll the clay and emboss the stones. The 2-inch by 2-inch pieces of wood that you see here are wrapped in a silk or a plastic silk-like packing material that I'm using, to put the other side of the house on, because we've already put the clay on and embossed the stones there, so it helps to protect the finish. And I use these this silk material that comes, I just took it out of packaging I got from a shipment, but I assume it's available. But in any event, you need something soft to put the other side of the house on, to prevent any damaging, of the previously embossed stones. Okay, well, before we apply the clay to this side of the house, we have to roll a little piece for both the inside of that chimney at the top, and for that little piece of balsa wood that you see there, that's for the stoop. We might as well do that now at the same time. If you recall, we made it out of balsa wood, and it's 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch. Well, there you go. Once you're finished with the basic cutting, you can just kind of mold that to fit the chimney structure itself. We'll just go ahead and carve the grooves in the brick, matching, and you know, we'll do this freehand, but we'll be matching the lines on each side of the chimney so our bricks look uniform. And now for the stoop, we'll do the same thing. Okay, the stoop and the chimney top are dry now, so we can go ahead and cut out the clay and emboss the stones for the chimney side of the house. What I've done is I've taken a file folder and I've made a template out of it, you know, in order to aid me in cutting the clay to the proper size. You can just as well use cardstock. So we'll go ahead and cut the clay now. And just like the other two previous sides, we'll go ahead and glue the clay on before we start the embossing process. Okay, so I've just started the embossing process. If you missed how I make these embossing tools out of paintbrushes, I covered them in part 3 of this series. For the front of the house, we'll apply the clay in 2 sections. First, we'll do the lower section. If you recall from the plans, we have a pent roof there, so we'll take it right up to the green line in our measurements, and then we'll also put our braces on a little later. So I'll go ahead and do that. With the clay still soft, this is the perfect time to embed the pent roof braces that we cut out and painted back in part 2 of the series. So I'll go ahead and do that before we proceed to the next step. Okay, I removed the 3 braces and now I'm cleaning out the clay, and next we'll go ahead and glue them in place. So in addition to the clay drying around them, they'll also be glued in. Okay, I'm just finishing up embossing the lower section, and what we'll do next is we'll go ahead and try the pent roof on, make sure it fits and everything's level, etc. While we still have a chance to change things, but everything looks good at this point. So we'll go ahead to the upper section. At this point, with the upper section right next to the lower section, we'll just take a piece of scrap plastic that I have that's a little thicker than the actual pent roof thickness, but I cut it to the same length. So I'm just making sure that we have a good groove in there that we can fit our pent roof in once the clay and the stones that we emboss are dry, and we'll be able to glue it on to the support pieces. Well, there you have it. Once the clay dries, we'll go ahead and paint the stones. Well, the clay is all dry now, so we can go ahead and paint the different stones, and we'll paint all of the stonework. You know, I've experimented with a variety of methods to really obtain a look of actual stones, and I think the method I've come up with is one of the best. And it starts with a wash. In this case, I'm using butter pecan and water to prepare a wash for all the stones. Then I'll use 10 different colors, you know, to paint the various stones, and we'll also put an antique glaze over them. Here's some of the experimenting I did with this house, and I've decided on this color arrangement that I'm pointing to here as the look we want for a Delaware River Valley stone house. So, but first, you know, what we have to do is distress the house, and for that I've got 2 tools, a wire brush and a metal tool with a pointed end on it. So I'll go ahead and do that. We just want to draw lines, different sizes and wavery lines, straight lines, etc., over the whole house, you know, for various stones, and then we'll also take the wire brush to it. So now for the wash, we're going to use 1 part of this Folk Art butter pecan paint and 12 parts water. So I'm just using a small baby spoon to mix this up, because it's about all that I'll need probably for the whole house. Okay, well now we'll just go ahead and paint this wash on very thoroughly. You can't use too much. I mean, you just let it soak in to all the stones there. Just paint it on as thoroughly as possible. Well, the wash has thoroughly dried now, and you'll note that there are variations in the color of the wash, but that's okay. That's exactly what we want to show the authenticity of the stones over the years. Now, for the painting the stones, I like to use the pointed or the rounded and pointed brush, which makes it easier to paint. But keep in mind that this is a process that we'll be putting grout in too, and you can, of course, you can always touch up the paint. Next, here's some of the samples that I've experimented with to get just the look that I want for these Delaware River Valley stones. Notice that the wash really establishes the underlying base color of the stones. Okay, I've put together this chart to show you the list of paints and their serial numbers. You know, and I've also put the recommended 10 colors into 3 groups based on the approximate number of times I would recommend that you use them on each side of the house. I've zoomed in so that you can read the chart better, but it will also be available with the plans that you can access at the end of the video. White birch, yellow ochre, and pewter gray are the 3 vivid colors that will be used the fewest number of times, about 5 to 7 times on each side of the house. Then for the colors we'll use most of the time, sandstone, steel gray, and khaki. We'll use about 20 to 30 times on each side of the house. With the fewest stones, we'll use only 5 to 7 times. And then we'll end up with the 4 colors that we use about half the amount of time as the previous 3, about 10 to 15 times. And that's country gray, butter pecan, steel gray, and warm buff. And please, if you can't get these exact colors and the brand names that I've indicated there, please feel free to substitute similar colors. As we start with the white birch, I just want to suggest that you might also want to use a scrap piece of gator board and create a sample where you can apply all the colors on first and see how the whole process, put the grout in, and we'll also be weathering it further, and just see how it all turns out, and then do it on the actual side of the house. So I like to start with this Americana model paint white birch first, as well as the yellow ochre and the pewter gray, because it's easier to randomly place them around the side of the house without the other colors either confusing my placing them right next to each other or just not being able to pick the actual stones I want to paint these first 3 colors on. Colors might require 2 coats, but other colors I really like just the 1 coat, even though the base color is showing through, because it gives the stone a more authentic, which by the way is another reason why you might want to do a sample first, just to see how your colors come out. And again, I want to stress that it's not important. I'm certainly not a painter, and my hand at 82 years of age isn't as steady as it once used to be. So I might get some paint on an adjacent stone or have certain errors, you know, in how I painted the stone. And I find when I put the grout on and do the rest of the process, it really doesn't make it doesn't create a problem at all. Well, as I start with the pewter gray here, I'll go ahead and speed up the video now so you don't have to watch me paint the other 9 colors. Plus, I'll do the other 3 sides of the house off camera. Here's what the application of the 10 colors look like. The finished house will, of course, have a more authentic look as we age the stones and apply the grout in the last video, part 6 of this series.
Well, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up below and also subscribe. That way you can be informed of my new projects. This stone house is a complete craft project from the top of the chimney to the display stand that it sits on. And by necessity, I've divided it into 6 parts according to the sequence that I built it in. So if you're going to build one of these for yourself, I certainly recommend that you view the other 5 videos. Don't forget to get a free copy of the house plan drawings below, plus the supplies list and the list of tools that I use. In case you can't get some of these items locally, I've also furnished links for you to obtain them. Lastly, I invite you to visit my Etsy shop, where you can see examples of other models that I've made. See the link below. Good luck with your own build, and if you have any questions, ask them in the comment section.